guess the best thing is to introduce yourself.
Okay.
Where you're from, you don't have to say city, you can say state or area, whatever, and what you do for a
I,
living.
I will tell you which hemisphere I live in, and that is all.
That's fine.
Uh, let me know. Let me know when to start.
Go ahead.
All right. I'm Tony Fischer. I'm a car guy from Chicago, Illinois. I'm a construction manager up here. And when I'm not working, I'm usually wrenching. And when I'm not working or wrenching, I'm racing.
Right on. So, what got you into cars, though?
So I've been into cars like my whole life. I was actually trying to think, is there some event when I was a kid? No, like I always had Hot Wheels. Anything with a motor, anything that made noise, anything that moved, I was into. So it's been a lifelong passion for me.
Right on. What was the first car you ever had?
The first car I ever owned was a 1993 Toyota Celica.
Okay. Um, what is the worst car you've ever owned?
Ooh, oof. That's tough. I had a 1989 GMC Safari minivan, full conversion with captain's chairs in the back. That thing was special. It's tossed up between that and the Integra, where when I tried to jack up the rear end from the jack point started to move up into the hatch without moving the car. So the metal was a little soft.
Okay. What's your dream car? No budget. Anything you want.
That's tough. Ooh, I would have to say probably Mark IV Supra 1996 with a 6 speed.
Okay. Right on. Um, what's currently in the garage or garages?
Yeah, so I have my daily driver, and the car I race is a 1999 Civic hatchback. And then I also have a 2000 WRX Impreza STI Limited, which is my baby.
So the Civic kind of has some history to it that I remember. Uh, maybe you walking outside and then not being there.
Yeah, yeah. So the first, I don't know, 10 months I owned the Civic, I just parked it on the street in front of my house, not thinking anything of it. And one Monday morning, I came out to go to work, and there was a silver Subaru Crosstrek where my Civic used to be, which was a pretty traumatic event. It sucked. It's actually how I ended up with the stupid Integra that with the soft floor, is because I never thought I'd see the hatchback again. So after about 2 weeks, there was a guy online who was selling the Integra, and I bought that. And then literally a week and a half later, the cops knocked on my door at 3 a.m. and said, "Do you own a red Civic hatchback?" And it was parked 3 blocks from my house. So somebody had dumped it, but it didn't get anything stolen. So that was, I think, what probably happened is they got on Lincoln Avenue and hit it and realized it was still a stock motor because nothing happened.
So that's kind of perfect to play into because the other question I was going to ask is I know with the Subaru you haven't really you might have done some stuff to it, but you mainly focused on the Civic more. So like, what are some things you've done to the Civic?
With the Civic, because it's my autocross car, I focused mostly on handling to begin with. So wheels and tires. I'm running a 15-inch by 6.5 wheel, which is within spec for SCCA racing. If I ever go beyond what I'm doing now, with RE71R tires, and then I've also replaced all the bushings with hard race hard rubber bushings. I've replaced the stock suspension springs with Ibach Pro Kit, Coney yellow struts. I've got a front strut bar. I've got a rear subframe brace, rear sway bar, 17 millimeter to help the rear end come around. And then I've done some miscellaneous things. I put the seats from a Honda S2000 in there, short shifter, intake header exhaust, but left most of the motor stock. Just because I don't know I think I know what's next, but I think we're going to talk about that next.
Right on. I mean, I've watched kind of it progress on Facebook, and I've also
Yeah,
seen all the body work and like all the
yeah,
crazy stuff. So it's been cool to watch though because it's not like I'm not doing that to anything. So
yeah.
it's cool to see like actual drivers like working on their cars and really getting into it and being like, I'm just gonna try this. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
it
so
is super cool.
you took off on it, man. So we are going to do Crown.
We are going to do Crown Rally.
Your first Crown.
I am
So
a virgin.
how did you hear about Crown though? Like, did you hear about
Um,
it for me, or have you known about it for a while? Like,
I had known about it for a while. Being a resident of Chicago, they've had a couple of launches here that start here and or go down to Joliet. So I'd see blips on social media um, posting about it, but the caliber cars were just so far beyond anything that I own or may ever own that I didn't pay a whole lot of attention because the concept of the exotic, like, it was cool until I realized like how expensive exotic cars are to maintain and all that stuff. And it's a different world than I live in. Or so I thought.
so I
I'm
mean,
super excited.
we, um, you accepted to go, but what was kind of one thing that was a major push when you were like, oh, okay, I definitely want to.
I think it was one is understanding how Crown takes care of the participants. They make it very easy to participate in that rally. I also love that there's a charity function as well. That's super cool. Like, you're not just a bunch of guys in hot cars flying through the world. You're actually trying to make some positive impact as well, and I thought that was great.
For sure. What are you looking forward to the most though about it?
Uh,
I mean,
I,
it
don't-
can be the route, or it can be something general.
I was gonna say the route. I think Tail of the Dragon's gonna be awesome. Going through, being on the Smoky Mountains. I'm really looking forward to that part, um, especially in the caddy.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't do tail on ours because the hurricane knocked out
Right.
on the tree, and then it was a cluster because we took off and tried to get on, and the GPS didn't catch up in enough time, and then we hear about it. It was so hopefully, and I mean, you'll be behind the wheel, so.
Maybe. Probably. Yeah.
So you mentioned autocross,
Yep.
and how did you get into that though?
So I have a buddy who I race with the Windy City Miata Club. Check them out; they're pretty bad. They are awesome. Everyone in that club is amazing. So he's a member. He has a Miata, and he kept bugging me. You got to come out. You got to come out. You got to come out. So I came out, before I had the Civic, and sat with him, rode through, rode a run with him as a passenger, and I was like, this is really cool. And it's something I had thought about. I'd done a couple of autocrosses back in college when I had the Celica still, but it didn't. The people there weren't great, and I didn't love the event that I went to. So the time turned me off. This turned me back on. And once I had the Civic, I knew it was time to get started.
So what, like, because I see pictures, so it looks like it's mostly like they set up kind of a track in a big parking lot.
Mhm. Yeah. So basically, autocross is you against the clock. It's not wheel to wheel. There's usually two cars on course at any given time. One's starting and one's wrapping up, and they set a course using cones. And so it's not unlike downhill skiing where you have to go through certain gates. You get penalized if you hit the cone and knock it over. A time penalty. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to get from the start to the finish as fast as you can. And what's cool is that the track changes week to week. There's somebody usually in the club who designs the track, and then they set it up in the morning, and you run through it. With the Windy City Miata Club, we get a lot of runs because they only allow 75 cars per weekend. So we usually get between 10 and 20 runs, depending on the size of the course they plot. But yeah, so you're exactly right. They set up cones. You run through the cones as fast as you can. You try not to hit any. You try not to miss any gates because that's a DNF, and nobody wants to be not qualifying. So it's pretty fun, and the people are great, and it's a great atmosphere, and it's the most fun you can have for $40.
So are there instructors for that? Like, are there
There
people
are.
with you when you start out or something like, hey, this is brake here, pedal here?
Yep. So with the club that I run with, there's club members who are veterans at autocross, and at the beginning when you sign up, they ask you if you've autocrossed before. And anything less than 5 times, they have you put an X at the end of your number on your car. Each car has its own set of numbers on the side. Usually blue tape. I've got some gold magnet numbers that I bought because I thought they were fun. But you just need to identify your car, and that's how they can get you your time. So when you're new, you put an X on. When there's an X on your car, usually what happens is one of the veteran members will say, come up and see you and say, "Hey, can I ride along?" And yeah, absolutely, because when you're doing it for the first time, you have no idea. So the person Pat who runs the autocross will ask you at the beginning. She'll ride with you sometimes on your first run, or one of the other volunteers will run with you on your first run, so that you don't get lost, you don't feel uncomfortable. They do a really good job of trying to guide you through the course and teach you what you need to know in order to be successful. And they'll keep with you with each event that which you join, which is why I love this club so much. Is that they just do a really good job of taking care of folks, and it's a very positive atmosphere.
Right on. So, I mean, it's mostly like cars like yours and like Miatas, or it's not like I'm saying it's not a
Yep.
big Cadillac CTSV or like a McLaren because it's in a parking lot. So it would be nearly impossible to almost handle horsepower and size of a car. It sounds like on maybe I'm completely off.
Well, I got a picture I can send you of your car in white on a course. They
Okay.
came out. We've had everything. There's a guy who comes regularly who's got a GTO that's fully race prepped. There's a guy with a Challenger that's stock. He just runs a stock, 2016 Challenger. So it's not. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. Your car, they won't allow SUVs and stuff because they're too top heavy, so there's a liability there. But any passenger vehicle, I've seen stock 2010 Corollas. I've seen what was the there was a guy who came out with a P-71 Interceptor, a Ford Crown Vic. So it doesn't matter. Like I have an advantage because my car is actually a little narrower than a Miata, but guys with Mustangs come out, guys with Camaros come out.
Okay.
It's not relegated to any single make or model. They'll accept anybody.
So it's truly open. It's
Oh
not.
yeah, oh yeah.
I was just curious because, like, I mean, I've seen the posts that you make with your buddies, and so it looked like it was kind of, more
Mhm.
the JDM style cars than
Yeah,
say, you know what I mean. So that's why I was curious because it's just
yeah,
fun to hear about that. Like our buddy Pete, Pete the Porsche.
yeah, yeah. With the Porsche,
So like he does the Porsche Club, but that's like track, crazy track.
correct,
And
correct.
so he's like, hey, the Porsche Club. I have to Porsche and not
Yeah, yeah. Pronounce it right.
like us Americans. And they were at Indy Motor Speedway, so the 500 track. And he's like, "Hey, just come check it out. You can come." And it was cool because there's nobody there. So it's you're in IMS by yourself. But so I was expecting just like GT4 RS. It's like GT3. It's like 911. That's and there
Yep.
was Corvettes and there was a Dale Earnhardt replica.
Like stock car.
Yeah, it was just like open. So there was so many
Awesome.
different cars, and I guess I just always assume whenever I hear like a certain brand's
Hmm.
club that it's, you know what I mean. So
Oh yeah.
okay,
It's a to your point. That's actually one of the things that they've been trying to overcome. I mean, obviously they're Miata centric, but they don't want to have they're not exclusive. You know what I mean? So you get a nice mix, which is super cool, and I think it's great that they do that because they could be. There are enough Miatas who autocross that they could just say we don't want anybody but Miatas, but they don't do that. The BMW club here is similar. They will, they're majority BMW, but they'll let anybody who wants to come, sign up and pay the fee and come race.
right.
So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's just random. I mean, you hear I don't know because you know me, like I enjoy cars, but
Mhm.
I'm not the classic car guy in the sense of like I'm always going to Cars and Coffee or I'm going and like I just like man, I'd rather hang out with my buddies and like cruise around and
Yeah.
then do rally. I guess I'm not. I just so I'm not in that world. Like I don't. When Pete's
Mhm.
talking, oh, I'm going to the Porsche track event. I'm like, oh, so it's just gonna be Cayman's, not in any. you find out it's not. So it's cool to hear like for autocross for you that it's, yeah, dude, I can pull up and it's, probably I would guess there is a certain amount of the same people that are always there. But then you may just randomly get this guy that comes in like a Hellcat Charger, and you're like, okay,
Yeah,
so what's
yeah,
that?
yeah. And but it makes it interesting when that happens because you know like there was a guy who had like a 450 horsepower Mustang with basically uncorked pipes. um they have a sound decibel level. You can't be more than 100 decibels, and he was just under. But that thing was loud when he got on it, and it was cool to watch it. It was cool to watch him fly through the course. And he was a nice guy. But half the day you're either, because you work, you race, and you rest. So if you're not racing, you're working. So you're standing around picking up cones and hanging out with somebody out on track. And if you're resting, you're sitting in your chair having a sandwich or whatever you're doing, and again hanging out with somebody. So it's kind of like cars and coffee when you're not when you're on your rest period. Because we usually wander around and check everybody else's car out, and talk about your own car if somebody comes by you. It's pretty cool. It's a cool atmosphere like that.
Definitely sounds more exciting than parking lot car show of just.
I mean, I wasn't gonna say nothing to you, but yeah,
Well, I mean, it's dude, it's all people's personal preference. Like I
yeah,
understand
of course,
people go because they get to see their friends, but to me, I'm one of those people where like I'd rather really be doing something. So if I go to Cars and Coffee, I'm like, I've seen that car the last 2 weekends. Like, okay, I get it. Like, but you don't need to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning to drive to the parking lot to sit there and talk to each other. It's like, hey, we could go grab brunch at noon instead of waking up at
do the
6.
same thing. Yep.
So it's like I would rather like autocross obviously sounds so much more fun because it's like, hey, I get to actually drive. I'm
Yeah,
not standing
if you don't
here.
want to drive, you can ride.
Yeah. So that's awesome.
Highly recommend. Highly recommend.
Have you ever thought about doing like track events?
Yeah, the Civic, the Civic has a. How do I put this in a way that doesn't insult the Civic? It's slow as hell. So if I do a track event, I may. I'm torn. I want to, but at the same time, like insurance liability, am I still covered if I wreck the Civic? Am I going to be in everybody's way? Because it's not just me out there at that point. Those kinds of things where I'm constantly having, like, I'm trying to run my track race, and my track race is half the speed of the guy in the Porsche GT3 behind me, and I'm constantly spending my day waving him by and making sure I'm on the outside. And now, why am I out here? I can't run my race line. So those kinds of things have concerned me, and I haven't found anybody who's told me that they found a way around that. My guess is probably class racing, where you're set in a certain class with a certain horsepower power to weight ratio, whatever it be, and that way you're not spending your day dodging everybody else.
Well, we're kind of on the same wavelength in that sense of worrying about you wanting to enjoy yourself, but also not messing up other people's enjoyment. So on the rally, I mean, I had the car for that's like 5 hours of seat time before
Yeah,
going on a rally across the country. And so I wasn't real comfortable with the car. I'm still not because I literally came home and it's like, okay, it's winter, car goes in the garage.
yeah,
Um, but when you're doing things like Tail of the Dragon or you're doing um, Devil's Triangle or like
mhm,
more well-known, notorious routes, and you're with a Porsche GT4 or GT3 RS or
yeah,
McLarens and Huracans, and those guys are experienced drivers. I'm like, I want to be in the way. Like
right,
I don't want to ruin somebody else's fun. And
right,
so that was a really big thing for me. And the guy that was with me, I mean, it was fine, but he was just like, "Don't worry about what other people are thinking. Just enjoy yourself." I'm like, "I am, but I can do two things at once. Like
yeah,
I can go last so that nobody's behind us and still have fun, but I want to consciously be last." And he's like, "Why are you worried about?" I'm like, "Because you just don't want to mess that up for somebody else. Like it might be the only time they ever get a chance to go on Tail of the Dragon or something,
yeah.
and they're like." I don't know what the speed is because we still haven't done it. But I
It's
mean,
30.
right, the speed limit is 30, but
Yeah, Yeah.
you know,
As far as what I plan to do, 30 miles an hour is going to be where I'm topping out myself. So
right. So I
yeah,
mean, there was like roads leading up to that, and it was the same thing where I didn't even realize it. We stopped at a gas station, and it was right before Devil's Triangle.
yeah,
Um, and we left. So I was like, let's just get out front. That way we'll be through this by the time like all these guys catch up. And we're just driving. And of course it's double yellow for the
yeah,
majority. And I get stuck behind like some dude going 25 and a 45, like an old
yep,
farmer that lives there that just doesn't care. It's the South, man. It's like,
yeah.
ah, when we get there, you know? And
This
then
is
like,
exactly what I was going to talk to you about, and when turn comes to ruining everybody's good time. Trust me, there's a 1997 Ford Ranger who's doing that for everybody.
yeah, but I look up and there's literally the whole package behind me, like 30, 40 cars. And I'm just like, oh no. So now I've got to, when it's open, I've got to go a little bit faster than
Yeah,
I.
but, you know,
It was fine. Like it worked out because we got to like a random stoplight. They were doing
mhm,
construction in a 2 lane, like up in the mountains. So everybody had to stop. And I
yep,
didn't get out 'cause I was like, I don't want to, I don't want to hear go. But the co-pilot got out, and the guy behind us was like, hey, he's doing really well. So it made me feel better. But we
yep,
got into the entrance of Devil's Triangle,
mhm,
and a Porsche, a McLaren, and a Lambo just got into the double yellow and hauled
yep,
both behind me. So the first chance I could get to pull over, I was like, okay, people are mad, so I'm pulling over. Like
yeah,
we're not ruining this. But it's the same thing. But yeah, it's I was just, that's the track. It's like Pete and another guy here that do track events are like, you gotta track the B, you gotta track the B, and I'm like, I
yeah,
just, I don't know that I want to mess my car up, and B, I don't want to ruin somebody else's day. And they're like, you'll be
yeah.
fine. Don't worry about it. They're like, I
They'll
go,
put you in the beginners class. You'll be fine.
yeah, I'm like, if we could just drag race, like straight line, I'm there all day.
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
do that just fine. But when we're getting into like, you know, there's a car that's way smaller that's made for this. I'm in,
yeah. The view's no slouch, man.
like I'm in
Yeah,
grandpa's muscle car pretty much.
yeah, but I'd give it a shot. What the hell, you only live once.
We'll see what will happen. But
We all know what's going to happen.
I won't go into the specifics, but I think I might have told you about Pete and why maybe I'm a little more
Hmm.
skeptical about
Agreed.
it. Yeah. But anyway. All right. So I have kind of a standard set of rapid fire kind of questions. So we'll
Okay, cool.
know. So what is the go-to drink on long drives?
Cherry Coke Zero.
Okay. Must have item in the car.
Music.
Wow. Yeah. What is the best song to drive to?
KMFDM Light.
You got him. Worst ticket you've gotten, and if it was speeding, how fast?
Ooh,
Point
worst ticket I've actually gotten.
like,
Um,
or
yeah,
whatever. I mean,
yeah. I was doing 65 and a 30, and at the time, the law was that anything over 31 miles per hour over the speed limit was reckless driving. So when the cop pulled me over, because he was the only other car on the road going the other direction, he pulled me over and said, I clocked you at 55 in that 30. And knowing the law at the time, I said, yes, you did. Yes, you did. I didn't even argue that I wasn't speeding. Yes, 25 over, 100%. Yes, sir. The worst ticket I should have gotten, I was doing 114 out in between just north of Purdue. I got into Brookston and I was slowing down, and the cop pulled me over and he said, I clocked you at 70 and a 55. I said, okay. He said, you weren't about 10 miles out of town 15, 6, 7 minutes ago, were you? I said, no. He goes, oh, because County radioed in somebody doing about 115. I was like, couldn't have been me. This is a 1990 Celica, man. No way.
yeah.
Statute of limitations is out on that one, so I can tell that story.
Well, that stretch of road is really hard to not lay into.
It's we're 52 when you take 52 out of town and it just goes out of the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's flat and straight.
that's it.
Yeah.
That's the section.
What favorite car related movie?
Death Race 3000,
What is it?
the original one. Death Race 3000, the original one.
Okay. I've been waiting. I've been expecting every single person I do this with to say Fast and the Furious. So when you didn't say that, I was like, huh?
Yeah,
um, biggest pet peeve that other drivers do.
the left lane. Stay out of it.
Yeah, I agree. Um, okay, so this one's just interesting to me because I have experience with them and I'm not the biggest I mean, they're not horrible, but so the question is, would you buy a hybrid or electric car? And if so, which one?
I would, but it would have to be like the Tesla Roadster. Tesla's kind of first car. They had to increase. They would have to be performance oriented for me to be interested.
Got
Um, so the answer is yes with a but.
yeah, so it's basically I am not interested as much in saving the planet as I am saving the planet, but it has to be so fast and not really saving the planet that much.
Yeah, I really enjoy driving, and I want a car that's fun to drive.
Right.
And if it's an electric car, great, cool, let's do it.
Okay. What is the ugliest car in history?
Yeah, it's a 1992 Buick Skylark two door. And if you don't believe me, Google it and look for the one that's in teal with gray with a maroon stripe.
Okay.
It's like it looks like a Ford Taurus wagon and a Pontiac Aztec had an extramarital affair, and the baby that came out, it was the worst parts of all the genes. It was like the Danny DeVito portion of Twins as a car.
So Aztec is always my answer.
Yeah, the Aztec's a horrible car, but everybody forgets. Like in the early '90s, American design. I don't know if they were on drugs. I don't know if they were coming down from drugs. I'm not entirely. You got like the Chevy Lumina, the Ford Aerostar, the Taurus. All these American, the Grand Am of that period, all just horrible between 1990 and 1996. Just awful, awful design. And the '92 Skylark is the pinnacle of terrible American '90s design.
This is like a weird my cousin Vinny moment. Like at the very end when they're talking about the Buick Skylark.
Yeah,
um,
we can move on.
yeah. Okay. So this is another question that's kind of weird. Because I like to this is something I talk about with everybody when I talk about cars. And that is, do you think doing burnouts and smoking your tires is cool or not cool?
It depends. Are you in the staging area of a quarter mile? Then it's cool. Are you not in the staging area of the quarter mile? Then you're not very cool. It's just like I think it's just a complete waste. Just nothing about it. It smells bad. It doesn't actually look that cool at the end of the day, and it really doesn't serve a lot of purpose outside of costing you money and tires. So I would say not cool.
That's my that's where my mind is too, especially the last person I was talking to. He has an Alpha, and
Hmm.
so it has to have specific tires, same as like the CTSV. And the thing I said to him, I was like, "Yeah, if you have a Mustang where you can go buy $80 Walmart specials,
Yeah.
like do as many burnouts as you want because you're not really spending much money on tires. But when you're
Right.
spending $1,600 on tires,
Thank you.
why would you want to go through those?"
You also have you ever tried to clean? Have you ever tried to clean cooled rubber off the back of a fender?
Well, I mean, I haven't had to do rubber, but I've done a lot of nasty stuff coming off of cars in my day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm sure you have. Yeah.
it's not enjoyable for sure.
You. You.
Yeah. I mean it's okay. I'm just interested because it's one of those questions that it's like there's no middle ground. You know what I
No.
mean? Like
I was like, oh, it's cool sometimes. No, it's never cool or it's always cool.
right. Okay. What is your motto in life?
Lead, follow, or stay out of the way. And I think that goes across the board. It's not just car centric. Like when there's problems in the world, you either have to create the solution, be part of the solution, or stand aside and let somebody do it. Because just standing there and getting in the way and putting up roadblocks is not beneficial to anybody. So either figure out the solution, be a part of the solution, or get out of the way of those that are.
Is that did that come from somebody specific?
I mean, I'm a construction manager.
Right.
But no, nobody specific has said that to me. It was something that I picked up along the way and kind of adapted into my own life, because I would have a tendency to kind of stand by stand in the way and be like, you can't do that. That's not the right way. And it's like, I'm not helping. I'm
Right.
not helping when I do that. I'm hurting.
And you're not
So
doing
right,
small town like ranch house builds either.
right.
So when you're in Chicago with big commercial buildings, it's kind of more important to especially follow that, I'm sure. I mean, yes,
Yeah,
it definitely does go across the rest of your life, but I'm sure you being in that position in that job really learned that quickly of like, yeah, there's
yeah,
one option here. Like there's really, you can't just wing this or do your own thing kind of.
right. And always be willing to fill any three of those roles.
Right.
Sometimes you lead, sometimes you follow and support, sometimes you just stand by.
Right.
Sometimes you really don't have anything to offer that's going to help the solution. So you have to kind of just let those that do their thing.
Right. No, that's definitely true. Do you have anything like Instagram account or a charity or anything you
Not
want
that
to
I, not that I
basically
want to tell you about.
the what?
I said not that I want to tell you about.
No. OnlyFans, huh?
Listen, how I make my money is my business. No, in all seriousness, I don't. I kind of keep a low profile on social media by design. So if I ever start anything up, I'll be sure to plug it. But you know, I'm uh, I'm good just hanging out with the Caddy Shack.
Or is there any like charity or anything that
Well, I mean,
you might want people to know about? Like no, it doesn't have
yeah,
to be rally related, but just anything. I mean, is there
yeah. I
something
mean, I think the Crown Rally doing the Shriners Hospital is a great cause. St. Jude's is another really great place to donate your money. Southern Law Poverty Center is another good one. Help folks who can't help themselves, especially kids. There are so many kids that are lost in the DCFS system right now. Anything you can do to help those kids out is gonna benefit them. We know that the data tells us that. Kids have a certain direct trajectory in life, and things get in the way and interrupt that. And anything you can do to be a positive influence is going to help.
for sure? Cool. Well, I appreciate you doing this, man.
Yeah. Well, thank you for inviting me, man. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I hope it turns out well. It's a cool project.